Chapter 4, The Invention. Early that evening, George and Harold sneaked back to school with their supplies. They crept into the gymnasium and peeked around. "I think somebody's still in here," whispered Harold. "Oh, it's just Melvin Sneedley," said George. Melvin was the school brainiac. He was busy putting some last-minute touches on his new invention for the contest. "We should wait here until he leaves," whispered Harold. "No way," said George. "He could be here all night. Let's just go over and talk to him." When Melvin saw George and Harold approaching, he was not happy. "Oh, no," he said. "I'll bet you guys are here to mess with everybody's inventions." "Nice guess," said George. "Listen, we promise not to mess with your invention if you promise not to tell anybody that you saw us here tonight." Melvin looked lovingly at his invention and reluctantly agreed. "I promise," he said. "Great," said George. "Say, what is that invention of yours anyway? It just looks like a photocopy machine." "Well, it used to be a photocopy machine," said Melvin, "but I've made some major adjustments to it. Now it is an invention that will revolutionize the world. I call it the Patsy 2000. "It'll revolutionize the world, and you named it Patsy?" asked Harold. "Yes," said Melvin. "Patsy is an acronym for Photoatomic Transmogribbling Ectophan Triplutonic Zanziptomizer." "I'm sorry, I said Harold. "Allow me to demonstrate," said Melvin. "The Patsy 2000 can take in a two-dimensional image and create a living, breathing, three-dimensional copy of that image. For example, take this ordinary photograph of a mouse." Melvin placed the photo on the mouse onto the glass screen of the Patsy 2000 and pressed start. The lights of the gymnasium dimmed as all the power in the entire school seemed to get sucked into the Patsy 2000. Soon the machine began to vibrate and hum loudly, and tiny bolts of static electricity snapped out from underneath. "I hope that thing doesn't explode," said Harold. "Oh, this is nothing," said Melvin. "You should have seen how the Patsy 2000 reacted when I copied the poodle." Finally, after a series of flashes and loud zaps, everything stopped. A small ding was heard, then a tiny mouse crawled out the side door of the Patsy 2000 and onto the floor. "Isn't it wonderful?" exclaimed Melvin. George inspected the mouse closely. "That's a great trick," George laughed. "You really had me going for a while." "It's not a trick," cried Melvin. "The Patsy 2000 really does bring photos to life. I've even created living creatures from paintings and drawings." "Yeah, right," laughed Harold. And I thought we were con artists." George and Harold walked away chuckling. It was time to move on to bigger and better things. Chapter 5, Bigger and Better Things. George and Harold went to the other end of the gymnasium, opened their backpacks, and began to work. George busied himself by turning all the spray nozzles on the automatic dog washer around, while Harold filled up the soap tank with India ink. Then they moved on to the volcano detector. "Will you please pass me the big bag of butterscotch pudding and a Phillips head screwdriver?" asked Harold. "Sure," said George, as he carefully inserted eggs into the ping-pong servomatic. Chapter 6, The Invention Convention. The following day started out sunny and cheerful. The students and faculty filed into the gymnasium and checked the seats very carefully before sitting down. "Greetings," said Mr. Crubb, who was standing up at the microphone. "You don't need to worry about sticky seats today," he said. "I've taken measures to ensure that this convention won't be a disaster like last year's." Everyone settled in as Madison Mancini, a third grader, stepped on stage to demonstrate her automatic dog washer. "First," said Madison, "you put your dog in the tub. Then you press this button." Madison pressed the start button. At first, nothing happened. Then suddenly, a spurt of inky black water sprayed up and out over the crowd. Everyone, except the dog, got soaked, as Madison tried desperately to turn off the sprayers. "I can't stop it!" she cried. "Someone turned all the nozzles around!" "Now who could have done that?" asked Mr. Krupp. Next up was Donnie Schumacher with his ping-pong servomatic. He turned the machine on, and immediately it began hurling extra-large grade-A eggs into the crowd. Foop, 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 went the machine. Splat, 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 went the eggs. "I can't turn the machine off!" cried Donnie. "Somebody jammed the paperclip into the controller!" "Now who could have done that?" asked Miss Ribble. Boing. Freddie Moore's volcano detector was also a big flop. When Freddie connected the circuits to the 9-volt battery, a large spring, which had been crammed into the center of his miniature volcano, launched a giant plastic bag of butterscotch pudding high into the crowd. It landed somewhere between the third and fourth rows. Splat! Hey! Whined Freddie. Somebody put pudding in my volcano! Now who could have done that? Asked Mr. Meaner. The rest of the day went on much the same way, with people shouting everything from, "Hey, who put oatmeal in my solar-powered leaf blower?" to, "Hey, who let out my sound of my treadmill dune buggy?" It wasn't long before everyone fled the gymnasium, and the second annual Invention Convention had to be called off. "How could this have happened?" cried Mr. Krupp as he wiped chocolate syrup, pencil shavings, and cream of mushroom soup off his face and shirt. "George and Harold have been in study hall all day long. I put them there myself." Excuse me, Mr. Krupp," said Melvin sneedily. "I think I even answered your question." Chapter 7. Busted! Crash went the door to the study hall room. Mr. Krupp stomped in like a crazy person. George and Harold had never seen him this upset before. "You boys are in so much trouble!" Mr. Krupp shouted. "I'm putting you two in permanent detention for the rest of the school year!" "Wait a second," cried George. "You can't prove anything." "Yeah," said Harold. "We've been here all day." Mr. Krupp smiled devilishly and looked toward the door. "Oh, Melvin," he called. Melvin sneakily stepped into the room, covered in mustard, eggshells, and shredded coconut. "They did it," Melvin said, pointing at George and Harold. "I saw him last night in the gym." "Melvin!" cried George, horrified. "You promised!" "I changed my mind," Melvin said, grinning smugly. "Have fun in detention."